Very good.
Let's see. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hey, how's it going? All right, good deal. All right, you ready to start?
Yeah, go
All right, now I was hoping to talk for maybe a half hour or so and then take some questions. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, keep the hey, where'd you go? What'd you do? I want to see everybody. So it looks like I'm talking. Can I see everybody? I mean, can you keep the camera on them?
That'll be great if the next thing starts happening with the audio. I'm going to turn off our video so that they can
Okay, that's not a problem, but I like to see the audience. It makes it, there we go. All right, so here's the deal, guys. This is the way I look at this whole Fukushima thing, okay? There's a concept I like to call locus of control. Have anybody ever heard that term, locus of control? I mean, locus means location. So the location of control. In life, there's all kinds of problems we have, but it doesn't do us any good to worry about problems that we can't solve or that we don't have control over. Locus of control refers to the fact that some things we have control over, some things we don't. We don't have control over Fukushima. We have trashed our earth, we have trashed our oceans, we have trashed our air, we have trashed the world, but we don't have any control over that. Where we do have control is in how our body processes these toxins. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So where we do have control is in how our body processes these toxins. We have an absolutely amazing, staggeringly complex and intricate and very effective detoxification system. Our body has an ability to detoxify things. Our body has an ability to detoxify cadmium and mercury and lead and heavy metals of all kinds. However, in order for that detoxification system to work correctly, we got to have the right nutrients, we got to have the right environment, and we have to minimize something called load. Load is a word that refers to the straw that breaks the camel's back phenomena. So that the way you put one last straw on top of the camel's back and the back breaks, and it looks like it was that straw that caused the problem. That straw was merely the last straw, as the saying goes. It was the last straw that broke the camel's back. But before that straw broke the camel's back, there were accumulating straws that we didn't happen to see or we didn't happen to notice. Well, our job is, if we're interested in protecting ourselves from radiation and we're interested in protecting ourselves from toxicity of all kinds, and I would present that Fukushima is really only quantitatively different. It's not qualitatively different in the sense that we got all kinds of toxicity going on. Fukushima is only important because it's a mega huge example. It's an exaggerated form of toxicity. It's not qualitatively different in terms of toxicity. It's quantitatively different. It's a bigger toxicity, but it's the same idea. Toxicity is toxicity is toxicity. Our job to protect ourselves from toxicity is to support the body's detox processes. That means supporting the liver, using nutritional supplements, and reducing the immune system detoxification load. LOAD is what I'm saying, load. Now, there's a wonderful book by Dr. Sherry Rogers called Tired or Toxic, which is a little bit technical, but it's an amazing, it's a wonderful, dense, packed, layperson scientific book that explains all the nutrients that are important for the detoxification system and what happens to the detoxification system when it gets overburdened. So our job, using this locus of control principle, is first and foremost to reduce the burden on the immune system where we have control. We don't have control over Fukushima, but we got control over the kinds of foods we eat, we got control over the kinds of foods we don't eat, and we got control over the kinds of nutrition and supplements and lifestyle that nutrients that we take in and lifestyle that we live. Those are places where we have control, and those are places where we can reduce the load. Does that make sense, you guys? Reducing the immune system and toxic load. We can't control Fukushima, but we can control what we put in our mouths, either in terms of what we are getting or in terms of what we shouldn't be getting. I remember when it wasn't Fukushima, or maybe it was Fukushima actually, but Fukushima first, when the whole thing blew up a couple of years ago, I remember everybody wanted potassium iodide. Do you guys remember that? How there was a big run on potassium iodide? I probably got, the first week, I must have gotten 4 or 5 phone calls every day from people who wanted potassium iodide in my pharmacy. You guys know I'm a pharmacist. I didn't think to introduce myself here, but you guys all know I'm a pharmacist, right? So in my pharmacy, after Fukushima went off, I got these calls for potassium iodide, maybe 4 or 5 a day for 2 weeks. Everybody wanted potassium iodide. I thought to myself, I wish I had some potassium iodide. I could have been, who knows how much money I could have made selling potassium iodide, but I didn't have any potassium iodide. But I thought it was very interesting how every day on my drive home from the pharmacy, I would drive by McDonald's, I'd drive by Taco Bell and all the fast food joints on the way home, and I noticed that even though everybody was obsessed with potassium iodide and Fukushima, the lines at McDonald's were no shorter than they were before. The lines at Taco Bell were just as long. People still were drinking their Coke and eating their Big Macs and eating the corporate swill. And it's this disconnect that we have between dramatic examples of health crises, of health issues, and the day-to-day breakdowns that occur in how we take care of our body that go under the radar. So with this concept of locus of control, we want to control the factors we can. If you're really interested in protecting yourself from radiation, one of the most important things you could do is not eat the corporate swill. And that means McDonald's, and that means candy bars, and that means French fries, that means all the things that the Leviathan, do you guys know what I mean when I say the Leviathan? The monster, the state establishment wants us to eat. We have an ability to detoxify substances, albeit it may not be as powerful as Fukushima. You know, it might have met its match in terms of nuclear radiation, but we still have a very powerful detox ability. But we got to understand how to reduce the load by just mundane, boring, day-to-day strategies like not eating Big Macs and not eating Whoppers. It's not sexy to say, oh, well, the best way to protect yourself from radiation is to not eat at McDonald's, but the fact remains that reducing immune load or reducing detoxification load is a place where we have some control. This is where locus of control comes in. So the first strategy for protecting us from any kind of toxicity, it's important that we don't go off on too much on just Fukushima, because the air is poisoned. There's drugs in the water. There's pesticides everywhere in the soil and in plants. And even if you're eating organic, you're still eating toxic food because the organic vegetables are being watered with drug-laced water. So everywhere there's toxicity. Fukushima is a big example, but everywhere there's toxicity. And where we have locus of control, number one, is by taking care and paying attention to the kind of foods we're eating. Not eating corporate foods, not eating restaurant foods. Basically, if the person who made the food for you doesn't love you, you probably don't want to eat that food. That's a rule of thumb. Okay? If they don't love you, and if they don't speak your language, and they just want to get away from their job, and they can't wait to punch the clock and get out of there, that's a food you probably don't want to eat. That's a good rule of thumb. In any case, paying attention to the kind of foods you're eating is step number one for detoxification and for protection from toxins, for getting rid of toxins and for preventing the entrance of toxins. And by toxins, I'm talking radiation and pesticides and everything else. Pay attention to the kind of foods you're eating. Number one, staying away from corporate foods and eating foods, only the kind of foods that you know where they came from, or you know how they're being prepared. The second thing you can do is reduce psychological stresses and mental stresses and emotional stresses, because when the body is stressed emotionally, mentally, or psychologically, its ability to purify itself shuts down. The body has two ways of operating. It has a way of operating which I call survival mode, and another way of operating which I call thrival mode. The distinction between survival and thrival is survival is the body trying to get you out of a situation where it thinks its life is at stake. Thrival is where the body is growing and repairing and detoxifying and protecting, which means if you are in survival mode, your ability to detoxify and protect yourself from toxicity and radiation and all the other crap that we have to that we subject ourselves with, so we are subjected to, The key is going to be to reduce psychological, emotional, and mental stresses. Keep your body in thrival mode and away from survival mode. That means, because we have an ability to use our mind and our imagination, we can pretend we have survival threats when we don't. The IRS is not a survival threat. It just seems like a survival threat. Our dysfunctional families are not a survival threat. They just seem like a survival threat. Our bosses and our jobs and all of the crises that we have in our life may seem like survival threats, but they're really not survival threats. But because of our imagination, our ability to use our mind, our biochemistry ends up perceiving our dysfunctional families, the IRS, the government, our credit card bills as true survival threats. And when that occurs, our body's ability, once again, to prevent the entrance of toxins in or to detoxify itself becomes suppressed. So again, it doesn't sound sexy here, but simply by relaxing, by not taking things incredibly seriously. Why do angels fly? Because they take things lightly. By understanding how to live your life in a lighthearted mode as best as you can. Yes, there's things going on, and I understand this, and I have them in my life as well. But as best as we can to activate the thrival system by using emotional relaxation techniques, mental relaxation techniques, and psychological relaxation techniques. I call it hot tub therapy. The body does its best work, its best healing work, its best detoxification work, its best cleansing work, its best thrival work in a hot tub. How do you like that? How good is God? He may set it up so the body does its best work in a hot tub. All right? We live in a culture where relaxation is somehow looked at as laziness, but it's not. To the body, the relaxation response is intimately linked to the thrival response, and the thrival response, in turn, is intimately linked to the detoxification and preventing toxification from getting into the body response. So number one, staying away from the crappy food. Number two, making sure you're using emotional, mental, and psychological relaxation techniques. And number three, or number 2A, making sure you're using physiologic relaxation techniques, making sure you're learning how to relax your body. When we contract our body, when we contract our muscles, the contraction is read by the brain, the muscular contraction is read by the brain as if there is some kind of stress. In other words, if you're contracting, your brain thinks it's an emergency. Just the muscular contraction. In fact, you guys will notice that if you think something crappy, you'll tense up just for a second. And if you tense up for just a second, you'll notice you're getting a little bit of, there's a little bit more anxiety. So there's a circular relationship between tension and anxiety, leading to tension, leading to anxiety. And all of this will conspire to suppress the body's ability to detoxify itself and to suppress the body's ability to protect itself from radiation and toxicity. Does it make sense to you guys? This is not some kind of sexy magic formula that you take to get rid of radiation or protect yourself from radiation. These are things you could do as you're sitting in the chair right now. As we live our lives in a mundane kind of hour-by-hour, minute-by-minute basis, we can all relax our muscles. We can all relax our emotional or psychological natures, and we can all stay away from the corporate swill. These are all things that we can do without any magic formulas or any doctors or getting on the internet and ordering things. We could do this just laying in bed or sitting in the car. The third thing that we could do to protect ourselves from toxicity and to detoxify, and you notice I'm saying there's two things here. There's protecting ourselves from toxicity, and there's also detoxification. Protecting ourselves from toxicity is keeping the stuff out of the body. Detoxification is cleansing the body, getting the stuff out of the body. In any case, there's a third step, and this is my favorite, and I just have a passion for chemistry, so my favorite way to approach detoxification and toxification and health in general is using nutritional supplements. Number one, staying away from the corporate swill, staying away from food. Number two, lifestyle strategies, relaxation techniques, relaxing the muscles, hot tub therapy. And number three, there are amazing nutritional supplements that can support the detox system of the body. Probably the most important nutrient for detoxification is vitamin C, especially for detoxifying radiation. Now, it's interesting because sometimes
you hear about something over and over and over again, it seems like it's not so important because you hear about it a lot. Well, vitamin C falls into that category. We sometimes underappreciate the amazingly powerful nature of this substance for everything from building connective tissue and bone and collagen to keeping your brain healthy, to keeping your skin healthy, to helping the body detoxify. It can be especially important for detoxifying mercury, by the way. But all detoxification. Vitamin C is not really found in a great extent in a lot of foods, ironically. The highest kind of foods that have vitamin C in it are chili peppers. Chili peppers will get you about 400 milligrams of vitamin C or so. A cantaloupe, maybe a couple hundred milligrams of vitamin C. Kiwi, 200-300 milligrams of vitamin C. But you really need 10 grams of it, 15 grams of it. You need a lot of vitamin C. You'd have to eat, if chili peppers are the highest food source of vitamin C, and you get about 400 milligrams of vitamin C, you'd have to eat somewhere on the order of 15, I don't know, which maybe 10 chili peppers. What would that be? 20 chili peppers, 25 chili peppers a day. That's obviously not going to happen, right? So supplementing with vitamin C is a key strategy for detoxification and preventing the entrance of toxicity into the body. And everybody who's interested in protecting themselves from Fukushima-type radiation needs to be supplementing with vitamin C. An association with vitamin C is vitamin E. Vitamin E protects the fatty part of the body. Vitamin C protects the watery part of the body, and they work together. And vitamin E is very, very difficult, even more difficult to get in foods than vitamin C is. The highest food sources of vitamin C or vitamin E will get you around 30 to 40 international units. You need about 400 international units a day. You can really go as high as 800 for protection from radiation if you want to use vitamin E that way. So you'd be very smart to supplement with vitamin E. There's two different kinds of vitamin E. One is called tocopherols. The other is called tocotrienols, and they're both important. I probably would be using the second. If you had to pick one, I would probably be using the second one, which is called tocotrienols. That's spelled T-O-C-O-T-R-I-E-N-O-L-S, tocotrienols. So you have vitamin C, you got tocotrienols, and then there's a third very important supplement that works with these two, with vitamin C and vitamin E, and that's called alpha lipoic acid. Alpha lipoic acid is wonderful for protecting from radiation. It's got what are called chelating properties. Chelating is a fancy way of saying magnetically pulling. And alpha lipoic acid, in addition to vitamin C, has chelating properties that magnetically pull toxins out of the body. Alpha lipoic acid is, again, difficult to get from food. You probably want around 400 milligrams of alpha lipoic acid every day, taken with vitamin C and vitamin E. Perhaps the most important mineral for protecting you from toxicity and from radiation is selenium. And everybody should be on at least 200 micrograms of selenium a day, but probably 400 to 600 micrograms of selenium. Selenium is the body's main way of protecting itself from mercury, and it's the body's main way of protecting itself from cancer-causing toxins. Selenium is a component of the molecule glutathione, which you may or may not have heard of. I'm going to tell you about that here in a moment, because glutathione is another very important nutrient for detoxification. But selenium helps activate the glutathione molecule, at least in some cases. So selenium acts like a battery for glutathione. And selenium it's a little easier to find in food, but mostly in seafood, which ironically tends to be very heavy in mercury. It turns out that because selenium helps detoxify and chelate away mercury, it may actually be that seafood, which has mercury in it and which gets some bad press, it may actually turn out that seafood is protective from mercury, even though it contains mercury. Now, that's kind of ironic. But in any case, seafood is going to be your best source of selenium. Another important mineral for helping detoxification is sulfur. Sulfur acts in a sense like selenium. It has a chelating property, and there's a lot of different ways to get sulfur. MSM is nutritional sulfur, and that's another must-have nutritional supplement for a lot of reasons, but especially for detoxification. Somewhere around somewhere like 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day of MSM sulfur. Another way to get sulfur into the body is with a supplement called NAC, which stands for N-acetylcysteine, but you could just call it NAC or NAC. In fact, if you go to the health food store, and I highly recommend everybody goes to the health food store and get NAC as soon as possible, just because it is the ultimate detox molecule. the ultimate, and by ultimate I mean if you go to an emergency room with liver poisoning, they'll put NAC right in your blood. They'll inject it in your blood. It's part of the protocol for liver poisoning in emergency rooms, but you can get the same supplement that you get injected into your blood in an emergency room setting. You can get the same supplement at a health food store for 15 bucks. It'll be the best 15 bucks you ever spend, for 15 bucks for a 2-month supply. It'll be the best 15 bucks you ever spend in terms of detoxification for everything, and I mean everything from alcohol to Tylenol to prescription drugs to mercury and heavy metals and radiation. NAC is a panacea detoxification supplement that, in my opinion, everybody should be using on a regular basis. Some other miscellaneous detoxification supplements, substances that are not specifically supplements, like they're foods more like. One of the best is algae and spirulina and chlorella. All of these substances are very rich in chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is a powerful detoxifying substance. Of course, chlorophyll will be found in any green plants and green vegetables, but algae and seaweed, things that live on the surface of the ocean, tend to be extremely rich in chlorophyll. They're also very rich in sulfur-containing compounds. So you get when you eat algae and spirulina and chlorella and these green kind of plankton materials that live on the surface of the ocean, not only do you get the chlorophyll benefits, but you get the nutrient benefits, which makes them all around detoxifying. They're also, you get fringe benefits. They're great for your skin. They protect you from the sun. They'll protect you from wrinkling. They're good for your bones and your immune system. The seaweeds are amazingly powerful, but as far as radiation goes, they can be very protective against radiation, among other toxins. Another very helpful detoxifying substance that's not strictly nutritional is zeolite, X-E-L-O-I-T-E. Some people spell it Z-E-O-L-I-T-E. Zeolite has little tiny cages. If you look at it, zeolite is a type of mineral, a mineral complex. If you look at zeolite under a microscope, you'll see it has lots of little cages, lots of little boxes, and those little boxes have an ability to trap toxins and flush them out of your body. And zeolite is completely non-toxic itself. So you could do scoops of it or spoons of it. You can use it as a detoxification substance on its own. You could put it in capsules, take capsules every day, wonderfully detoxify. And along the same lines of zeolite is something called bentonite, which is another type of mineral. And bentonite, like zeolite, has little tiny cages, and these cages have electrical charges that can help magnetically attract toxins out of the body and help flush them out of the body. Bentonite is also a very good source of minerals, absorbable minerals. Both zeolite and bentonite have electrical properties that can support the circulatory system. Wonderful benefits, all-around benefits, in addition to being very detoxifying. And then one of the all-time great detoxifiers that, probably when I tell you what it is, you'll say it makes sense, but we don't even think about it as a detoxifier, is H2O, water. The more you flush out the more you urinate and flush your system out, the more toxins are going to come out of the body. The way the body handles toxins is it makes them water soluble. This is what's supposed to happen in the body's detox system in the liver. Poisons and toxins tend to deposit in fats. Poisons and toxins tend to be fat soluble. Everything in nature is either water soluble or fat soluble. Toxins tend to be fat soluble. They dissolve in fat. This is one of the reasons why they're toxic, because they get stored, they get stashed in the fatty tissue of the body. If something is water soluble, it tends not to be toxic. One of the reasons is the body can flush it out. It's not stored. So even if it was toxic, it's going to get rinsed out of the body. So the way the body will detoxify itself is by making a fatty molecule water soluble. It'll take something like mercury, like radioactive mercury, which is fat soluble. It'll stick something on it that makes it dissolve in water and then flush it out. So by converting elements into water soluble, or converting fat soluble elements into water soluble elements, the body has an increased ability to rinse those materials out. Well, that rinsing out requires water and generous amounts of it. So making sure you're drinking water, of course, when you're drinking your water, you want to make sure you're not drinking you contaminate water. You want to make sure you're not drinking tap water. And I don't mean to insult any of my friends from Texas, but let me tell you something. You guys got some dirty water down there. Holy cow. Sometimes I feel dirtier after I left the shower than when I got in it. There's a stuff that, that stuff that doesn't come off of you? You guys are probably used to it, right? But But that stuff that doesn't come off of you is stuff that's in the water, and only God knows what it is. Some of it is minerals, but there's other stuff as well. There's a lot. The water table in Texas is very polluted. So if you're drinking more water, make sure it's distilled water or some kind of purified water. That's because you can make matters worse by drinking in toxins and give your body more work to do. So number one, stay away from problem foods. And I didn't say this, but I'll say this now. If you have a digestive problem, that needs to be corrected. And I forgot to say this also. Probiotics, so-called good bacteria, have a very, very powerful detoxification ability. They can help the body, the digestive tract specifically, detoxify itself. So getting on a good probiotic supplement, just supporting digestive health in general is very important. Secondly, making sure psychological, mental, spiritual, emotional issues are dealt with. You're not in survival mode. We're not in this stress mode where our body just is trying to get away from a saber-toothed tiger or some kind of perceived life-threatening event. Hot tub therapy. Make sure you spend, and when I say hot tub therapy, I don't mean to be facetious. I mean warm water. By the way, you know why everybody likes hot water and hot tubs and baths? You know why? Anybody want to guess? Because it reminds us of what? The womb, where we all want to go back to. When you immerse your body in hot water, it thinks it is in the ultimate safe space, the womb. And it turns on all of its thriving properties, all of its repair properties, all of its growth and detoxification mechanisms kick in when the body thinks it's safe. So when I say hot tub therapy, I mean showers, hot water, hot tubs, hot baths, but not just that, massages, all the ways that we can relax, naps, any way that you can relax the body, the psyche, the emotions, the mind, and feel somehow connected to spirituality in whatever fashion that is for you. That's point number two. And then point number three, using nutritional supplements like vitamin C, like vitamin E, like alpha-lipoic acid, like selenium, like sulfur, like N-acetylcysteine, and using pseudo supplements and food-like supplements, I should say, things like spirulina, algae, chlorella, bentonite clay, zeolite, drinking more water, and I think I might have said, I hope I didn't forget to say vitamin C because that's also important, and then supporting something called glutathione. I don't think I got into glutathione. Glutathione is the body's major cancer fighter, and using selenium, using sulfur, using NAC are great ways to upregulate, increase glutathione production from the liver. Last thing I'll tell you, and then I'll take some questions. If you're on a prescription drug, you have now compromised your body's ability to protect itself from mercury, from cadmium, from lead. You've added to the immune system detoxification load. Prescription drugs function as straws that accumulate on the camel's back. So if you are on a prescription drug and it's for something that is not like an emergency, not like a pain pill or an antibiotic pill, something you're on chronically, you may want to consider weaning yourself off of that or at least reducing your dose of that prescription drug. All right, you guys, there's probably a ton more, but that should give you plenty of information. Do you guys have any questions?
Pharmacist Ben, can you hear me?
Yeah. I hear you great. What's your name?
Ben. My name is Callan. I met you for the second time. I think you used January at Brave New Books.
Okay, I think I recognize you there, Cal. How you doing, buddy?
Great. It's good to see you again. So, my question is, I know you talk about nutritional supplements and the importance of that, and a lot of nutritional supplements have binders and excipients in it. And a lot, I have a nutritional background, and I tend to kind of stay away from it. Dr. Stephen Hines kind of advised that, he likes to use a lot of liquid minerals to kind of stay away from it. What would you say about stuff like magnesium stearate, titanium dioxide, stearic acid?
That's a great question. All right. First of all, liquids. Dr. Stephen Hines is right on. You always want to go with liquids for a lot of reasons. Number one, for nutritional density, because when you drink a liquid, your body doesn't have to process that liquid. It gets dense nutrients without having to do work. So you always want to go liquids: soups, smoothies, Beyond Tangerine, liquid minerals, all that stuff. Absolutely. Secondly, as far as the binders go, when you're making a tablet, a lot of work has to go into making that tablet. Number one, there's a lot of heat that's involved. Number two, you got to use binders and excipients to put the thing together. And number three, because you're dealing sometimes with like 100 micrograms of an active ingredient, in order to get the pill to be a certain size, you got to have stuff in there to give the pill body.
So you've got ingredients that you don't need, basically. As far as their toxicity goes, it's probably not going to be overly toxic. There's probably a lot worse things that you could do, and you're only doing very tiny amounts, but you don't need them. And if you don't need them, what's the point? They're not there for you. They're there for the manufacturer. They're there so that the product can get shipped and there can be a profit margin made on them, etc. If you have an option for a nutritional supplement that does not have those binders and excipients and fillers, that's the way you want to go. If it turns out that you don't have an option, it's probably not the end of the world. There's probably a lot worse things that you could do. But it's probably a good idea that you stay away from them if you have that option.
Okay. My second question to that is, sometimes we still have binders and excipients. It may just say magnesium stearate, and then it may say magnesium stearate vegetable source. The vegetable source option.
No, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That's just for marketing. Okay. Magnesium stearate's magnesium stearate. And by the way, stearate means steer, like a cow. So I don't know that you're going to find stearate. They may have some processing techniques to get stearate from plants now, but for the most part, stearate is an animal fat. Okay?
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. By the way, I should say, for the most part, stearic acid is derived from animal fat. There's probably stearates in plants too, but for the most part, our stearates come from animal fats. Go ahead.
The only question I really have is, you weren't introduced, so I don't know your name.
Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Ben Fuchs. I thought everybody knew me. What the heck? The heck? Where you been, ma'am? No, I'm just kidding. My name is Ben Fuchs. I'm a pharmacist by training. Although these days I do a lot more work formulating skincare products and formulating nutritional products, and then I do a lot of radio. I'm on the radio, on the Logos Radio Network, on a show that's on every day, 5 days a week. If you like what you heard, this is what we talk about 5 days a week on the program. It's called The Bright Side. And I have a blog, pharmacistben.com, and a website, brightsideben.com, and a very high-end line of skincare products called Sanitas, S-A-N-I-T-A-S. And I'm selling that company. I'm starting another skincare company here, hopefully soon. Did that help? Is that Deborah? Okay. Hi there.
Hey, Ben. Jim Leverett from,
hey.
We talked on the phone. You saw our educational company, but...
oh, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. That was Avatar, wasn't it?
Yes, right.
Will you call me? Jim, do you have my number?
I have your phone.
Give me a call.
What I did want to suggest that you talk about, you talked about about disease differently than allopathic, and you talked of it in terms of a foreign substance in the body that causes the immune system to react. Can you elaborate on that? Yeah,
the way, all disease is cell disease. This is the dirty little secret of medicine that nobody, either they don't want you to know or they don't know themselves. All disease results from a little animal that lives in your body in a community of 100 trillion little animals that are very similar to it. Those little animals are what we call cells. And those cells live together in this symbiotic relationship that we could learn a lot from as human beings. Like the Bible says, we are all cells in the body of Christ. And in a sense, this is what it's like. We're like little cells, and there's a big body. You can call the body of Christ, which is the human organism, and in a microcosmic fashion, we got little cells that make up our individual bodies. Can you imagine if those little cells went to war and had fights and killed each other and got jealous over each other and ripped each other off the way the big cells in the body of Christ did? We couldn't survive, right? And unfortunately, that may be what's occurring to the huge human organism that's made up of us, our little bodies. In any case, all these little cells function as individual entities that are symbiotically and cooperatively interacting with each other. However, if something goes wrong with the way those cells are functioning, with how those cells do their behavior, we'll get sick. What we call sickness is some group of cells that is not doing what it needs to do. And that's true about heart disease, that's true about cancer, that's true about autoimmune disease, that's true about zits, that's true about adrenal fatigue, that's true about every single health issue you can name. At some level, cells are not doing their business. A muscle cell is not muscling. A heart cell is not hearting. A skin cell is not skinning. A bone cell is not boning. Whatever. all the different parts of the body, all the different cells of the body are not doing what cells of the body are supposed to do. Now, why doesn't your doctor tell you this? Why don't pharmacists tell you this? Why doesn't the medical model tell you this, that all disease is a breakdown of cells? Because the medical model cannot help you at the level of a cell. Drugs can only shut a cell down. They cannot support a cell. They cannot energize a cell. They cannot feed a cell. They cannot sustain a cell. There's no drug or medical intervention, device, surgery, whatever, that can sustain and nourish and energize that little animal that's called a cell. And considering that all disease is a breakdown at that cell level, medicine cannot help us at the help us cure disease, because it can't help us at the cell level. However, we're not helpless, because even though medicine cannot help us at the cell level, God can. And by God, I mean through our decisions, through our ability to, or our, not our ability, but our willingness to nutriate ourselves, that means give ourselves nutrition, to breathe ourselves, that means give ourselves oxygen, and to detoxify ourselves to help the body detoxify. Indeed, at the cell level, this is where disease begins. There's only 3 things that go wrong, leading to a 4th thing, and that's all. Every disease. At the cell level, a cell's not doing what it should be doing. A bone cell's not boning. A skin cell's not skinning. A muscle cell's not muscling. A heart cell's not hearting. A brain cell's not braining. When it is starved, when it is suffocated, and when it is toxic. Those are the 3 things that go wrong with a cell. It becomes starved. That means it doesn't get the nutrients it needs. It becomes suffocated. That means oxygen is not getting to the cell to fuel the cell's behaviors or activities. And number 3, it is beginning to accumulate toxicity. Now, at this point, the cell will die or become defective. Usually it becomes defective, and then cells kill themselves. They actually leave the gene pool. They actually commit suicide. Harry Carey. If they know that they're defective, they'll go, like Harry Carey, they'll kill themselves. However, that's not good, because once a cell kills itself, it leaves toxicity in the area. And the body protects itself from toxicity by forming a wall around those cells. That wall is called inflammation. And what happens once you have that microscopic inflammation that's keeping that dead cell away from the rest of the body proper, more cells get starved because nutrients can't get through that inflammatory barricade, that inflammatory wall. More cells get suffocated because oxygen can't make it through that inflammatory barricade. And more cells get toxic because toxicity cannot leave through that inflammatory barricade, which of course leads to more dead cells, which leads to more inflammation, which leads to more which leads to more suffocation, starvation, toxification, which leads to more. You see where I'm going here? This is an endless spiral of degenerative disease, and it all starts at the level of one individual cell that is not getting fed, is not getting breathed, and is not it cannot drain toxins away. So what do? How do you break the cycle? Number 1, first and foremost, you got to turn off the spigot, the faucet of toxicity that's entering into the body. That means correcting digestive issues, because once we develop holes in our digestive tract, stuff gets into the body. So correcting digestive issues, that's called leaky gut syndrome, by the way, when you get holes in the gut. And number 2, staying away from any kind of problem foods. If you got to do one, and I know people who listen to this, my radio program are probably sick of hearing this, but if you got to do one thing to keep the disease process at bay or to correct the disease process if it's already begun, it's to patch up the gut and turn off the spigot of toxins that's getting into the gut. The second thing you got to do is you got to start drowning yourself in nutrition. That means supplements, and that means food. And food is the best. Food is the best. There's no arguing that. But these days, in my opinion, you're not going to get everything you need from food. So learn to supplement strategically. The combination of correcting digestive issues, improving absorption through the digestive tract, and supplementing and using nutrient-dense foods is step number 1 to correcting the cell disease process, or the macro disease that starts at the cell disease level. Step number 2, oxygen is a key player. We can go without. You can go without water for 4 days. You can't go 4 minutes. You can't even go 2 minutes probably without oxygen. In fact, if you want to know what it feels like to have a panic attack, how many of you guys out there get panic attacks or ever seen one or heard of them? Anybody? Okay. Well, if anybody out there wants to experience what a panic attack is like, just try to hold your breath for 2 minutes. All right? You probably can't even do it, but when you come to a minute and 40 seconds or a minute and 50 seconds, you will experience a full-fledged panic attack. And that's what the body feels like over the course of time when it becomes suffocated, and that's what a cell feels like over the course of time when it gets suffocated. When a cell does not have enough oxygen present, primarily because of poor breathing techniques, it begins to go into panic mode. It begins to go into anxiety mode. It begins to go into survival mode. And when a cell goes into survival and panic mode, it doesn't do what a cell is supposed to do. A bone cell doesn't bone, a heart cell doesn't heart, and a brain cell doesn't brain, and that's what we call the disease process. The third issue is toxification and detoxification, which is somewhat self-explanatory. And that detoxification is all the things we just talked about. But one of the most important ways to detoxify is to move the body. The detoxification system, or the detoxification, the poison removal system, I should say, for the body is called the lymph. The lymph is like rivers or like a circulatory system for poisons, among other things. The lymph doesn't have a pump. The circulatory system we call the blood, or the blood vessels, that has a pump, the heart. The circulatory system called the lymph depends on our movement. If we're not moving our body, toxins build up. If toxins build up, they start to surround a cell, and this can be one of the causes of the inflammatory process. So moving your body is key. You know how you always hear these stories of how your grandfather smoked cigarettes and he ate bacon every day and he didn't have a heart attack, he lived to be 90 years old. You ever hear those stories? Oh, my great-grandfather ate whatever he wanted and he didn't have any problems, right? What they don't tell you is your great-grandfather chopped wood every day. Your great-grandfather farmed. Your great-grandfather walked everywhere he went. He walked miles to the store. He took care of the horses. He was moving his lymph. He was moving his detoxification system. So the third key element, in addition to using nutrients for detoxification, is to move the lymphatic system, move the body. And along with that is to make sure you're not constipated. Constipation is the accumulation of toxicity in the body, and that can wreak havoc on cellular health. So making sure you're having regular bowel movements, either by staying away from problem foods. By the way, when the body is in, remember I talked earlier about when the body's in survival mode, when the body's it thinks it's going to die. One of the things that happens when the body's in survival mode is you will become constipated. Constipation is a classic sign of a body in distress. The digestive system doesn't work appropriately. So making sure that you're having regular bowel movements, number one, by relaxing, but number two, by using lots of water. Water is a great tool for helping loosen the bowels. Probiotics are also very important. A stool is maybe 50%, 60% bacteria, so making sure you got enough bacteria, making sure you got the proper bacteria. Vitamin C is a great laxative, using vitamin C on a regular basis. Grinding up fiber is another helpful strategy for having regular bowel movements. And then magnesium is also a very good laxative as well. So does that answer your question? That was kind of long-winded, but starvation, suffocation, toxification leads to inflammation, and then you get that vicious spiral. So eliminate starvation by making sure you're correcting digestive problems, absorption problems, using supplements, correct foods, making sure you're breathing, and making sure you're moving your body around in addition to all the detox strategies we talked about a moment ago, or a few minutes ago. Is that good? How you guys doing? Too much information? All right, good. Any more? Yes. All right, bro.
All right. Yeah, one more.
Sure.
So I listen to your radio show every day, and
good deal. Tell that lady back there. Turn around. Yeah. I'm just kidding you. I'm just teasing.
You're fine. Yeah. So pretty much on your radio show, you promote more of a I guess Paleolithic diet, and I've been trying it. And
I don't like that term. No. I would never say, you never hear me say Paleolithic diet. What I say, the kind of stuff I talk about, I've been talking about for many years, it has some elements of the Paleolithic diet in it. But it's not really the Paleolithic diet, which talks about eating a lot of meat.
I don't eat a lot of meat, and I don't recommend people eat a lot of meat. As important as meat is, or as helpful as meat can be, I don't really talk about eating a lot of meat because these days, it's not a very good food. So I'm not big on I don't consider what I talk about Paleolithic. I just want to be clear about that.
Okay, well, so my problem is, I guess I've been trying to transition to that. I don't eat pork. I don't eat pork at all. I did a lot of research into it, and from what I found, it seems to be the most acidic. So I try to resort to chicken. It's kind of lean.
It's just as bad, bro.
Really?
Just as bad. Hell yeah. Dude, chicken is one of the nastiest birds ever. Have you ever been to a chicken farm? I grew up on a chicken farm. Okay, they are awful places. The chicken walk around and they're crap. It's awful. It's hideous. Unless you have a free range, consciously raised chicken. If you're buying Tyson's or the standard chicken stuff, it's awful food.
I try to.
And by the way, what's the difference between red meat and white meat? Does anybody know? Anybody know?
I was going to say that. Well, from what I've seen, that red meat is kind of hard to digest, as opposed to like chicken, like turkey.
Negative.
Not at all?
Negative. No. Red meat and white meat, here's the difference. Nothing. The color. No, I'm just kidding. It's the myoglobin. It's just hemoglobin, the element that holds oxygen in the blood. There's the same thing called myoglobin in the muscle. Red meat has more myoglobin than white meat. That's the only difference.
Right. So I guess my question to you is, what does pharmacist Ben Fuchs like a day of pharmacist Ben Fuchs? Like, what would you eat for breakfast?
I'll tell you, but only because you're a bro and a friend, and we've talked to each other before. But I don't want you to think that this is what you're supposed to do. So I'm not telling you this in any way, shape, or. And by the way, I should also say, I do the program, and it sounds like I'm some kind of health guru. I'm not. All right. So if you happen to see me eating pizza somewhere, I don't want to hear about it. All right. If you see me out on Friday night doing a couple shots of vodka on Monday, I don't want to hear about it. Okay.
You got a deal.
All right. Because I just love chemistry, and I love the body, and I love how it's put together, and there's so much baloney out there, and there's so much crapola out there. I just want to clear things up. But I'm not a health guru by any stretch of the imagination. So that having been said, there's certain things that because I know how bad they are, I don't want to do them, and so I stay away from them. I don't eat I very rarely eat restaurant food, hardly ever eat restaurant food. And I was kind of teasing earlier. I said if somebody doesn't love you, you probably shouldn't be eating the food they're making. And that's basically a rule of thumb, that I've got. If I don't know the person or there's not some kind of connection between me and how the food is being prepared, I don't eat that food. I don't eat a lot of food either. But when I'm not supplementing and I'm not doing the good stuff, I gravitate towards the bad stuff. That's your best protection against the bad stuff, is make sure you have the good stuff. So what do I do to answer your question? First, I go to the gym in the morning, and I come home from the gym, I do a smoothie. And I'll tell you what it is, but I'm not telling you this because I'm telling you this because you asked, not because I'm suggesting you do this in any way. My smoothie is whey protein, One World Whey, the best protein going, best whey protein going. I crack a couple eggs, 1 or 2 eggs, depending on my mood, in there. I throw in some amino acids, glutamine, arginine. I throw in some B-complex powder, some Beyond Tangy Tangerine, some fats, coconut oil, Ultimate EFA, and then a couple, lecithin. I think that's, some algae, chlorella or algae, and that's it. And that'll last me, I'll do about 90 grams of protein. That'll last me till probably 3, 4 o'clock. All right. If I want to snack on a little bit, I'll have some veggies and cheese in the middle of the day if I want to snack. And then at night, I'll have some seafood like squid or shrimp. Or I won't eat. I won't eat at night sometimes. And that'll be that. I'll have some juice maybe or some kind of almond milk or something to drink. And that's pretty much basically it.
So I kind of want to understand because, I listen to a lot of your shows. And like you did say, you did say that meat is important. So I'm trying. Meat is important. There's good things in meat, but unfortunately, it's like our environment. Why do we crap in our water and drink it? What kind of idiots are the human race? Why do we spew fluoride or spew poison gases in the air that we all have to breathe? What is our problem? Well, it's the same thing with meat. Why would we give animals that we're going to be eating diethylstilbestrol and estrogen and insulin growth factor and cancer causing? What is our problem? We are mentally defective, but that's how we live. That's our lives. And I'm talking about all of us, just because we're human beings. I'm including myself here. This is the world we live in. So when I say meat is a problem, I mean
yeah, it's potentially a good food, but it's got all this stuff in it that you're probably best staying away from, especially given the whole idea that we talked about earlier of toxic load. The more meat you're eating, the more toxins your body has to detoxify, the less able it's going to be to handle Fukushima and other toxins. So, yeah, meat has some things in it that are really good, but given the way we handle meat and process meat and grow meat and do all the things we do with meat, it's probably best you stay away from it unless you're hunting. That's different. If you're going out and hunting the deer, and that's a whole different thing.
How about if it's grass-fed and if it's organic?
That's better. Absolutely better. Organic, grass-fed, whole foods. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the way to go. That's the way to go. You know?
Thank you.
All right, good. Uh-oh. Am I in trouble?
No. I think you're going here. But
Okay.
a friend recently showed me a video called Reboot Your Life.
Okay.
No, Fat, Sick, or Nearly Dead.
Okay.
It was about a juice fast. It's
Okay.
fascinating information because I know people in some situations the way that he was when he started his. Where are you on that or that?
Juicing's amazing, but you got to be careful with it a little bit because once you juice are you asking about juicing? Is that what you were asking?
Juicing, going on a juice fast diet.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. But you got to make sure your juice is fresh, number one. Because the elements in juice begin to oxidize very quickly. You lose the nutritional value. So you got to make sure, and even crushing it up, you lose a little nutritional value. But the density of it is absolutely amazing. And the reason it's perfect for fasting is because many times we feel like eating not because we need calories, but because we need nutrients. So a lot of times you can meet your hunger needs. You can fulfill your hunger needs strictly with nutrition. And you don't need the calories. And because juices are so dense, number one, and because you're vortexing them in a blender that tends to electrify and activate these nutrients, you're drinking something that's extremely satisfying and extremely filling. So using juicing is not only a great way to get a dense amount of nutrients without requiring the body to do a lot of work. That's what I was saying earlier. Liquids give the body nutrient density without work. But not only that, but the fact that you're spinning it around in a vortex electrifies it, and that makes it very, very satisfying and ideal for fasting or ideal for anything.
Much difference between juicing or putting in like a Vitamix or one of those, not pushing
Vitamix. Vitamix.
Bad idea.
I didn't understand that. Say that again.
Much difference between juicing, which eliminates the husk or the core, or
you want the fiber.
blender, like a high-speed blender.
Vitamix.
Okay.
Vitamix, you keep the neat thing about a Vitamix is you don't lose the fiber.
Right.
Especially for women and for, I didn't mention it, for mercury and for toxicity, fiber has an ability to stick to heavy metals and toxins and flush them out of the body. So fiber is also a great detox strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hello.
Hey there.
I listen to your program too every day I can.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Do my bone soup, all that.
Thank you.
I am a little confused. I did do a 2-week Ayurvedic detox lymph, gallbladder, liver detox cleanse last year. 2 weeks, and I felt amazing after that. But now I'm getting all this information that these high-carb foods and that's not really the best thing to be eating because it was khichdi, which is split yellow mung beans and rice with ghee.
So are you confused about high carb? Is that what you're confused about?
I mean, is that healthy or is that not healthy?
High carbohydrates?
Yeah, like beans
well,
and rice.
Well, that's like saying, what's your name, ma'am?
Oh, Lauren Rogers.
Okay. That's like saying, are Laurens good or bad? Are there good Laurens and bad Laurens? That's like good carbs and bad carbs is like saying, or high carb and low carb is saying good Laurens and bad Laurens. There's just Lauren, right? Sometimes there's good, some Laurens might be good, some Laurens might be bad. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're Lauren. So there's carbs that are very, very important. Vegetables are carbs. You want most of your calories to come from carbs. You want most of your calories to be coming from vegetables. By definition, that's high carb. So everybody needs to be high carb. But not all carbs are the same. Beans tend to be high in polysaccharides and very sugary, sweet carbohydrates. And they tend to be high in soluble fibers soluble carbohydrates rather than insoluble carbohydrates that are very mushy. I'll call them mushy carbohydrates. Mushy carbohydrates are quickly processed into sugar. Stiff carbohydrates insoluble carbohydrates are not processed into sugar. So when you eat beans, your sugar levels go up very quickly. When you eat regular vegetables, broccoli, fibery vegetables, cauliflower, broccoli, peppers, celery, things that have lots of fiber in them, your blood sugar doesn't move at all or moves very little. But when you eat beans, especially if the beans are chopped up or they're mushed or they're processed, which is how we usually eat beans, your blood sugar goes up very, very fast. So beans are a different kind of carbohydrate than vegetable carbohydrates. So when you say high carb, low carb, we got to talk about the different kind of carbs. Now, I'm not even going to mention processed carbs. Carbs that that are in, by processed carbs I mean anything that goes to a factory that's unidentifiable. Those kind of carbs, obviously, that's the corporate swill carbs. But you're talking about like Ayurvedic, so-called healthy carbs. The problem with those kinds of carbs is they get turned into sugar very, very quickly. So if you have any problems, number one, with your blood sugar, you're diabetic or even pre-diabetic, or have a weight problem, you probably want to minimize your intake of those. And number two, because they're turned into sugar very quickly and very easily, bacteria love them. And if you have any problem with bacteria in the upper part of your gut, those bacteria can overgrow. They can begin to proliferate as you eat more of those foods. And that's why you ever hear beans, the musical fruit? Right. The more you eat, right? Yes. Everybody. Beans. No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. But you understand what I'm saying?
Okay, I do.
Why do beans cause gas?
Yeah, they ferment. Because
bacteria love them. And that's the problem. So the problem with the Ayurvedic, with that kind of bean, chickpeas, mung beans, what they are cheap forms of protein for the masses. Well, do you understand? Yeah. You understand? They're cheap forms of protein for the masses, okay? That doesn't mean they're good forms of protein. That means they're cheap forms of protein, all right? Peanuts are the same way. Right? Legumes in general are cheap forms of protein for the masses. They're good. I mean, you're going to get some protein. They're a good source of protein, but the price you pay is something you want to be very careful of. Another thing about beans and legumes, you know what a legume is? Have you heard of legume? That's what you're talking about is legumes, basically. Legumes and beans in general are seeds, right? That's what a bean is. It's a type of seed, right? Okay. Seeds are protected from being eaten. Nature does not want you to eat seeds. Why? Because that seed is a life. It's a plant. So in the jungle that is planet Earth, seeds don't want to be eaten, and they have a very interesting mechanism for keeping you from eating them. It's called poison. Okay? Seeds make poisons. You ever hear how you're not supposed to eat apple seeds? You're not supposed to eat, peach pits and that kind of thing? You ever hear how this stuff called B17, Laetrile? You ever hear of Laetrile? You ever heard of Laetrile? Anybody out there hear of Laetrile? B17 is a cancer drug, right? Where does it come from? It comes from pits, right? Pits and seeds are very, very high in medicine, which is another name for poison. So legumes and peas and seeds, they have to be either sprouted or processed. You can't eat them without sprouting them or processing them in some way because of the phytopoisons, which we also call phytonutrients, which means a lot of people will have skin problems, digestive problems, arthritis, all kinds of autoimmune diseases from eating legumes, eating beans, eating peas, eating seeds of all kinds because of these inhibitors that are in the seeds. Did you know this? Anybody know? Really? Yes. So the way the Ayurvedic and the indigenous cultures get around this is they process the seeds. They either ferment them or they sprout them or they press them. One of the things that happens is they soften them, and that makes them even easier for bacteria to feed on them. That makes them turn into sugar even faster. You see, that's why these products are always mashed and cooked, and they're processed in some way to make them less toxic. They're still going to have a little toxicity, but they'll be less toxic. And there'll be the problem is they'll be easier for the bacteria to ferment them and to also process them. Just like it'll be easier for you to process, they'll be easier for the bacteria to process. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
This is
okay.
Benjamin Fuchs, everyone. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much, sir. Very, very informative.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I'll talk to you again soon. Listen to the bright side.